Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event of the evening.
Hold one, Andre.
You're not good at this. Get out. Let me tell you a personal story about Vince McMahon.
You just made the list.
Oh my God!
Sorry, no speak English.
Dummy. Goodbye and good night. Hold two, on bar.
It's still real to me, damn it!
Dummy. Yeah.
This is the worst town I've ever been in.
Hold three, Lamas covered, three-handle family Gradunzel.
Mamma mia!
And now, Unchained.media presents the B Plus Podcast with your host, Greg Unchained.
It's me, Austin! It was me all along, Austin!
Number 4, Armbar.
I will never retire!
I still got 200 more! I got 200 more holes to list!
B plus players, welcome to All The Rest. I am your man of mystery, Mr Myster1ous, and we are here to cover all the wrestling news that we don't cover using our scheduled programming. For those of you who aren't in the know, Wednesday is our Kings of Sport Universe podcast. Friday, Aussie Graps, where we talk to an Aussie wrestler or Aussie adjacent helper in the Australian scene. And Saturday, View from the WWE Universe. I am Mr Myster1ous, and I will be guiding you through the wacky world of wrestling news. We're going to be covering some MLW, Being the Elite, 10 pounds of gold, and just all the other wrestling news that's come across our desk. For those of you guys who aren't aware, I do the birthday news, and I'm your main contributor on the Facebook page. Please give us a follow and a like. We really appreciate it. At the time I'm recording, for December 8th, I will give a happy 50th birthday to Michael Cole, beloved quote-unquote announcer for WWE. Now, you can say what you will about Michael Cole, given that he's not as widely regarded as like JR or Bobby the Brain, Gorilla Monsoon, Joey Styles, all those guys. But at the same time, there's a reason that Michael Cole has had longevity in the WWE. So, Michael Cole, I wish you the very best on your 50th birthday. I hope you celebrate it in style. With that being said, guys, we will get on to MLW episode 33, main evented by the Lucha Brothers defending their tag team gold against LA Park and El Hijo de LA Park. Now, I'll touch on that in a second, but with the news about Rey Fenix being injured last week, they kind of had to say that, look, Rey is still the tag team champion, and they are set to face the Hart Foundation in their Miami tapings on December 14th for 0 Hour, I believe it is. So they kind of spoiled the fact that the Lucha Brothers won this one. It did impact somewhat, but I still had a great time with this. So we'll do a big recap of all the episodes. So we started out with Selena De La Renta concocting a special potion or kind of casting a spell. Like, she's been a vicious businesswoman up to this point, and now she's speaking in a different language, and she's mentioning LA Park, and she's grinding these rocks together, and there's blood on her hands, and just like, now she's mystical. Like, Promociones Dorado has a mystical element to it. I'm a bit confused, but I feel like Selena can make it work. I like it. Just the fact that, yeah, you can never underestimate Selena as a manager and how vindictive, how vengeful she can be if she doesn't get her way. So this was a good prelude to the match and can kind of set up in the coming weeks Promociones Dorado getting a bit of momentum back after losing to the Lucha Brothers. So we cut to our first match of the evening. We have Simon Gotch's $10,000 fight challenge. So the Simon Gotch, the times that he's been wrestling, he's had a couple of open challenges, and the prize money has increased ever higher each time. The last one he had, I believe, was against Gangrel. which was a quick bout that he kind of won by DQ, which, yeah. And then so Simon Gotch has gone up against, is a jobber, a guy named Ariel Dominguez answered the call, and fair play, top-ranked amateur wrestler, but this was a squash. This was just to show that Simon Gotch is potentially a credible threat against Filthy Tom Lawler in their coming match for the Miami show. Gotch made quick work of Dominguez. He did a powerbomb into the corner, and then he did a pile driver. Pretty straightforward stuff, and kind of give Gotch a bit more character. He stuffed some cash into Dominguez's mouth, delivered another pile driver, and then just took the money back. So it's the stash, man. I keep saying it. It's that bloody stash. Like, he can be a really good heel. You give him enough to work with. So I reckon I don't see him going over Lawler, but if Simon Gotch can get a lot more character work out of this, I'm all for it. We've got some promos leading up throughout the night. So Casey Lennox interviews MJF, and he get his thoughts on the middleweight championship ladder match. And he is insistent that it will not happen, and he wants to dismiss the theory that he is afraid of heights. No, I'm not afraid of heights. No, shut up. No, I'm not a coward. This is dumb. Methinks the lady does protest too much, MJF, but we'll see how that goes. Hopefully you are able to make the showing, and you don't have to relinquish your middleweight championship, and we wish you a speedy recovery so that you can lose the championship in record fashion. And we cut to Tommy Dreamer talking outside. There's dogs barking in the background, hyping up the match against Brian Pillman Jr. He's calling him a skinny jean millennial who lacks respect, and he's going to teach him something that he should have been taught a long time ago. Respect for the people who paved the way to be in the business. I look forward to hurting you. Ooh, harsh words there. And of course, Lennox was back talking to Stokely Hathaway. What are his plans now? He was returned. It was a quick little moment last week when Low-Ki was defending his world championship. And yeah, he just looked like he was really, a lot of things were going on in his mind when he was watching Shane Strickland and enact his rematch clause. But Stokely, what are the plans for Stokely? He says domination, being successful. I plan to take MLW to new heights, and I'm here to manage. Whoever I manage, I promise that they will be here to right the wrongs at MLW, and they will be successful just like me. I can see Shane Strickland's storyline kind of being a part of Stokely Hathaway's, so I can see him managing him. Like, whether he is a part of Black Friday management, I don't know. But at the same time, because Low-Ki is still Black Friday manager, but he is partnered, quote unquote, with Selena and Promociones Dorado. So how that plays out and whether Strickland would be open to being in the same league kind of as Low-Ki, we'll have to wait and see. But I am looking forward to anything that Stokely does as the CEO of Black Friday, or the managing director, I should say. Now, our second match of the evening, Brian Pillman Jr. versus Tommy Dreamer. Finally, Pillman, finally, you've kind of found yourself. I mentioned last week that Teddy Hart and Brian Pillman cut this really great promo leading up to this match, and I've been I don't feel like I've been critiquing too much, but at the same time, like, I've found Brian Pillman to be an oddity, but this match, he really surprised me with just like straight up, he's got rid of the Playboy suit. He's just in Heart Foundation suit and Heart Foundation shirt and ring gear. But as much it was a slower paced match, like, it's got Tommy Dream is getting up there, so it would have to be a slow paced match. But I did actually quite enjoy this very much. The finish involved the horse cane. Pillman went to retrieve it, but the referee took it away. Pillman stood over Dreamer's head to shout his own name, and Dreamer chopped Pillman's upper thighs. So it wasn't a low blow, even though the ref didn't see it. So it could have been perceived as a low blow. And he rolled him up for the quick victory. So surprisingly, Tommy Dreamer walked out of this one the victor, which he wasn't much of the victor for long, because Dreamer, he did have a few words with Pillman, and he tried to shake his hand and just kind of say, like good match and show a bit of respect, but Pillman was having none of it. He used the cane to beat Dreamer down, and Teddy Hart came down just to rein Pillman in, just saying like, that's enough there. Hart raised Pillman's hand in victory, even though he lost, and one more, Pillman delivered a few swinging neck breakers, so after Teddy raised his hand, another swinging neck breaker for good measure. Hart didn't seem to condone what he did, but he didn't reprimand him, so I can see a lot of story being developed here. So you're really developing Brian Pillman as this deranged guy, not on the same level as his dad, which is great, but you can see shades of that, the inspirations of that. And I can totally see this being the thing that will potentially separate the Hart Foundation when the need arises, the fact that they can't quite rein in Brian Pillman and that he will be unleashed upon the world when the Hart Foundation finally finishes, which I hope it doesn't anytime soon, because these guys are just fantastic. But yeah, I could see a lot of things unfolding in here. We cut to a promo with Tom Lawler saying that he has some harsh words with Simon Gotch, calling him a fake, fraud, phony, and a liar, and he's going to break every one of Gotch's fingers so Gotch can't use the money that he won from backstabbing him with Selena. So, harsh words there. They got their match. I look forward to Tom Lawler kicking the crap out of Simon Gotch. I don't think I'm wrong in saying that. But our main event, the Lucha Brothers versus the Parks. This was really good, despite the fact that I knew what was going to happen. A really great match. No tags. All four men were inside the ring at the same time. Tables and chairs. Like, if LA Park, what he lacks in speed and agility, being up there in years, he makes up for in his endurance and being able to just take a beating, man. Like, I love LA Park, and this match flowed really well. There was so many highlights. You had like drivers, power bombs, Spanish flies, like monkey flips, right? There was Pentagon Irish whip Phoenix into the corner for a forearm strike on Hio de LA Park. Pentagon followed with a running clothesline. There were like super kicks. There were 619s. This match had it all. And there was a really great spot, of course, where LA Park whacked Pentagon with the chairs, and he did his guitar thing on the chairs. I love LA Park. I'm going to be gushing if I keep going, but there was a table that would not give. I don't know whether the point of it was to give, but like, man, they claimed the table weighed about 500 pounds, which is stupid. But the fact that it didn't break after all, like, we've been conditioned as a wrestling fans that tables will eventually break given enough momentum and push. And the fact that it took a few goes, it made the match even more ugly, and I really enjoyed it. For the finish, Pentagon pointed to Selena to trick the referee as he low-blowed LA Park. Pentagon blocked the low blow from here and followed him in a package pile driver. Phoenix then jumped from the top to stomp Hio for some extra measure, and then Phoenix then did a topo to LA Park on the outside and bounced off him into the crowd. Pentagon covered Hio to win, and they retained the tag team championships. Really great match. There was kind of the standard fare for MLW. The opening matches were just kind of there just to further storylines and further the next thing that's going to be happening. But we followed up with a really great main event, and I'm really looking forward to what happens next. We have episode 34 coming out soon, where we'll be seeing the leader of Los Ingobernables, Rush, going to be facing against the AAA World Cruiserweight Champion Sammy Guevara in a main event with international implications. You've got Teddy Hart stepping into the ring for a tune-up match, quote-unquote, as he readies to face Pentagon Jr. in Miami. Tom Lawler's going to be doing his own thing on there. And we've got Ace Romero going up against Marco Stunt, the 400-pound Ace Romero. So whether Marco Stunt is able to... We've shown that Marco Stunt is good with using people's momentum against them. How much momentum can he get against a 400-pound guy? and we've only got a couple more matches with Marco. Of course, he's now on the injury list. And we're going to be covering as well what's up with Shane Swerve Strickland after last week's work shoot promo. I don't know. It was a bit of both, I felt in my mind. But yeah, we are looking forward to what else happens in the land of MLW, and we will give it to you each and every week, guys. And we are going to be covering now a bit of Being the Elite. Be elite. Episode 129, Premonitions, as the broken / woken one would say. Last week, we announced that we were going to be covering Being the Elite and NWA 10 Pounds of Gold instead of, I should say, Lucha Underground until Season 5 is announced and it's going to return in all its glory. A lot of things happening here with episode 129. Marty is still trying to get people for his New Year's party. Flip Gordon said he doesn't have any plans at all for January 1st, so everyone should remember that he has no plans. And another person who surprisingly has no plans, Kenny Omega, the IWGP Heavyweight Champion. And he called up Marty himself just to say, dude, why haven't you contacted me? Like, what the hell, man? And like Marty, surprisingly, the fact that Kenny said yes. So, okay, great. And like Kenny prefaced that at this time I have no plans. So he made sure to specifically say that. So whether that changes in the next few weeks, we'll see in the next episodes of Being the Elite. And the fact that Kenny said yes, Marty kind of turned one on Flip saying, yeah, I got the dates mixed up. Like, sorry, man. Like, maybe next time. So he just straight up ditched Flip, which kind of sucks. And I can see that playing into, we had Marty and Flip here for World Series Wrestling. I can see that kind of playing out with how Marty Scurll is now one half of the WSW Tag Team Champions. That could really play into a lot of things. You got Hangman Page talking to the Mysterious H, and he says no to whatever deal is going on there. So Hangman is loyal to the Elite. He's loyal to Cody and the Young Bucks. The Bone Soldier comes in just to say, like, stop worrying about these messages. And he notes that there are torn marks on the pages. So he says that some of the guys might have been seeing it as well. So whether that means that another person is out there sending those messages or they know of what's going on, we'll have to wait and see. And we cut to Cody, who has seemingly gone over his case with the money shakes from last week. If you want to watch the exorcism of Cody Rhodes, please watch. That was a really fun episode last week. But no sooner has he gotten over the money shakes that Brandy has seemingly started to get the same affliction. Cody gets a message and then his hands start shaking. It seems like the money shakes are starting to come back. And even the dog man, he's getting the money shakes. All the roads are just being... I don't know what's happening, man. Like, they are really building up the fact that whatever they've got in the works, it's big, right? Another few things that happen. Daniels is having a bit of midlife crisis. He is drinking himself into a stupor. He falls back onto a broken beer bottle. There's blood everywhere. Hopefully Christopher Daniels is okay. Matt and Nick are putting up the Christmas tree, and the Young Bucks' dad says that Matt's back problems might be acting up again. He's like asking him, hey, are you okay? It looks like you're favoring your back a little bit there, but Matt's saying that, yeah, I'm doing the DDP yoga, like shameless plug there. So he's saying, okay, they're putting a bit of doubt into the health of Matt Jackson. All the while, we hear from their dad saying, come quick, Nick's on the ground here. Nick's on the ground. He's in the chair, in the recliner, and Nick is having a premonition about the future for 2019. We see stuff for All In. We hear the words Double or Nothing. We hear like all the stuff about potentially All Elite Wrestling, what might be happening in the next couple months. In the next month, I should say. God, it's like this year's almost over. So it's just another few weeks. And after the premonition, Nick has just got this really big smile on his face, just like he's been to Disneyland. And that's where we ended the episode. So, building up a lot more to what's happening with potentially All Elite Wrestling, man. They have got us hook, line, and sinker. Like, we are just waiting with bated breath. What the hell are they doing? Like, someone please. Like, did someone crack the Morse code from last week? My God, Greg's got me into this now. We actually need to figure this shit out. We'll leave All Elite away for the time being, and we will cut to NWA's 10 Pounds of Gold. They released an episode of 10 Pounds of Gold this week, and aside from Nick Aldis being the boss that he is, talking about the fact that he successfully defended his NWA World Championship against Jake Hager, which we'll be touching on him sooner in the episode as well. He is going to be facing against Brian Cage for House of Hardcore, I believe December 8th, which should be a really great showing. He's saying that he gives Brian Cage the benefit of the doubt, that he knows that he's an amazing competitor in a lot of ways that Nick is not, but at the same time, he knows how to beat him, but he's not going to let us know in the episode. Why would he? Of course not, on the off chance that Cage is actually watching. But then we have the announcement that NWA are going to be doing their pop-up event. I believe it's the 5th of January, 2019. So they announced that they're partnering with Tried and True Pro Wrestling for their first ever pop-up event, which is going to be called New Year's Clash, taking place in Clarksville, Tennessee. The show will feature defenses from all three of their champions, so Nick Aldis, the NWA Women's Champion Jazz, and the NWA National Champion Willie Mack. The opponents haven't been announced yet, but I can see Sam Shaw going up against Willie Mack. I can see that happening at New Year Clash. And also the first qualifying matches for the Crockett Cup Tag Team Tournament will be a part of the pop-up event as well. Billy Corgan said, of course, we are thrilled to partner with Tried and True for our very first pop-up event, where one night we'll bring our champions to the great fans of Clarksville, and what will be a night of hard-hitting old-school meets and new school professional wrestling. I love this. I reckon that the NWA have come so far in such a short space of time. The NWA name, like, they've garnered some loyal sports. They've gained some loyal athletes who remember the history, they respect the history, and they are keen to bring it back to the forefront, because in this episode as well of 10 Pounds of Gold, Nick Aldis got to meet freaking Harley Race, man. Like, that moment, like, that's a moment in time. All these things, like, we talk about All Elite, like the future for All Elite, but man, like, the future for NWA looks just as bright, and we will be here to report with you every step of the way, guys. I cannot wait. Before we get into all the news from All The Wrest and whatever else has been happening in the wrestling world, we will cut to super producer Greg to be talking about our sponsor for today.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Sorry to interrupt the podcast, B+ players, but I just need to take a second to tell you about Threadbox. Threadbox is a subscription service for men that makes looking good easier than ever before. Just fill out a few questions to start building your style profile, and from there you will be paired with a stylist who will send you new threads once a month, so you don't have to worry about checking the stores and finding new clothes. It's like having a personal shopper and stylist at your fingertips, and you just sit back, relax, wait for your awesome new gear to arrive in the mail. They sent me a box this month. I got a new pair of jeans. I got 2 shirts. You can check out the unboxing video on the Facebook page. And the best part about it is you can get in touch with your stylist by email at any time. So if you need new singlets, if you need new long sleeves, if you need new shoes, if there's something specific you want, you just let them know what you need and they'll tailor the box to your specific requests. It's a completely personalized service available on any budget. You'll always get way more value than you pay for because Threadbox work with all the best brands. Boxes start from just $40, and if you use our code, the B+15 at checkout today, you're going to get 15% off your first box. So what are you waiting for, man? Like, if you want to look better with less effort, head to threadbox.com.au and use the code the B+15 to get your box today.
And we are back, guys. Now, we've got a lot of WWE related news here, and we've got a couple of indie news to be covering around for All The Wrest. We'll start out with the injury list. Now, There's been no new additions to the injury list, thank God. But there's some potential updates of people who might be off the bench soon and some who might still be on the bench. We'll start with Alexa Bliss, who we reported on our Facebook page that, according to Mark Henry, he said in an interview that Bliss is essentially 100% cleared and that she's just getting ready to be a part of in-ring action again. But that's still up in the air, apparently. So Bliss has been cleared for some limited physical activity, according to the Wrestling Observer newsletter. So she hasn't been cleared for a full return to action. So according to the newsletter, she's begun training again at the Performance Center, but that training has been relegated to the modified wrestling ring known as the High Flyer, due to the fact that it includes a crash pad beneath the ring mat and it's nearly 1 foot thick. So whether Bliss is recovered, we can't say yet, but at the same time, it seems like they're really protecting her in what can happen. And I think we've talked about this over the past couple episodes of All The Rest, with potentially, hopefully, Baron Corbin losing against Braun Strowman when he hopefully recovers from his elbow surgery, and then that would leave Raw without a GM, and who could fill that void? Alexa Bliss, for the time being. And I could totally see her being a great authority figure. Of course, she wants to get back into in-ring action, and I feel like one of the reasons that she's being relegated to a limited clear is that she might be changing her ring style up. She might be trying to learn a couple more techniques. I mean, the WWE staff are reportedly watching her closely as she's trained, and she has taken a few light bumps, but reportedly not taken any falls in a standard wrestling ring. So all the best, Alexa Bliss, with your road to back to in-ring action. Another person who surprisingly hasn't been cleared yet, the SmackDown Women's Champion, Becky Lynch, which, despite being cleared this past SmackDown, like she's been on SmackDown the past couple weeks, apparently cleared for action because she has recovered from her concussion, she hasn't been cleared to work a live event due to the nasal fracture she suffered from Nia Jax's punch a few weeks ago. It should be noted that WWE did a Tribute to the Troops taping, I believe on Tuesday, where Lynch and Charlotte Flair faced off against Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville. Becky and Charlotte won that match. However, we don't have any results or details of how the match progressed, but it could have played out like Charlotte was the workhorse, and then all we know from it is that Becky locked in the disarmer at the end. So Becky could have not taken any bumps during that time, and it could have been Charlotte who was doing all the work for that match. So I don't know. I want the man back in action for the first ever women's TLC match against Charlotte and Asuka, please. Please. Like, it feels like if it keeps these injury lists, if the injury list keeps growing or people keep staying on the injury list, it's going to be a hell of a time for WWE to try and recover from all of this, man. But please, Becky Lynch, we wish you a speedy recovery, and I hope to see you at WWE TLC and making history like you always do. Another person who is still on the injury list for the time being, Joey Ryan. Joey Ryan's announced on Twitter that he'll be cancelling a lot of his shows' tour dates for December due to his recently torn pectoral muscle. So he hasn't been seen in MLW since his injury announcement a few weeks ago, and he left it open that he was waiting for recovery time to be determined by his surgeon. So all we know at the moment is that December this year is a no-go. So next month, potentially, we haven't received any updates about how long this will be, but hopefully, guys, they will sort it out real soon. Moving right along, we got some more WWE news here. I'll talk about the man known as Rhino, and this past Raw, we'll cover this on our view from the WWE Universe, the fact that Rhino, Baron Corbin put Rhino and Heath Slater into a match where the loser was going to be fired. And it was only for a couple minutes, and Heath Slater defeated Rhino. And Heath Slater's reward, quote unquote, for defeating Rhino was that he is now a referee. There That nabbit Baron Corbin. But yeah, apparently during the break, Rhino cut a retirement speech that was off air. So it's kind of up in the air whether he's actually retired or if this is going to play into a storyline later on. I mean, Rhino is one of the older stars on the WWE roster. He's been around since the 90s, man. He's been a tag champion. He's been a WCW US champion. He's been a hardcore champion. Like, his last gold was being part of the tag team with Heath Slater So I don't think that it's an actual retirement. I think if he's taking a break, it might just be for some injuries. Whether he will be back in action straight after that, after maybe Bliss, she's the general manager, she's like, Rhino, I like you. You get your ass back here. According to the newsletter, they say all I can tell you is Rhino is still booked for house shows, like Brian Alvarez said. If he's being fired or if he's retiring, it's not happening anytime soon. So there's that bit of news. Hopefully Rhino gets a bit of a proper send-off and that this is all just for a storyline coming forward. More WWE news. WWE held their first tryouts in India. They announced that they're going to have their first tryouts in India for next year. It'll be a 4-day tryout for 40 athletes. They released a press statement saying that India has been a extremely large and passionate fan base and remains a top priority for WWE as we continue to localize content globally. That was Triple H's words there. And they're confident that this latest talent tryout will result in a world-class pool of athletes ready to pursue their dream of becoming the next WWE superstars from India. Now, we've known for some time that WWE have really been trying to push into the Indian market. Of course, that was the whole point of Jinder Mahal, the modern-day Maharaja, being the WWE champion, which he's Canadian, which is the fact that that just... Anyway, that's what that whole experiment was about, and apparently it wasn't a real successful one, if I'm recalling correctly, and it was not received well by fans as well, the fact that Jinder Mahal rose to being WWE champion. But yeah, I support WWE expanding their reach, man. They're slowly putting their tentacles all around the world with the UK scene, of course, and yeah, why don't they cover Asia? Like, get some more stars, some more diversity in their roster. I completely welcome that. Like, they have their tryouts going in Chile at the moment. We wish them all the very best with that. Moving right along, we have potential news. Now, this is reportedly the direction that WWE want to take for next year. We have rumors that the King of the Ring tournament might be returning, but wait, it's actually going to be for the ladies. It will be a first time ever Queen of the Ring tournament. So according to Dave Meltzer, WWE is talking about reviving their King of the Ring tournament as Queen of the Ring, making it a women's singles tournament that might get its own pay-per-view because WWE wants to do at least one all-women's pay-per-view a year going forward, which, please, why stop at one? But that's neither here nor there. Of course, the King of the Ring tournament was started out in 1985. It was his own pay-per-view in the late 90s, early 2000s, which kind of didn't really go anywhere. It was a network special in WWE. And of course, we have a women's tournament. We have the Mae Young Classic. But at the same time, the Queen of the Ring tournament would be more the current roster, rather than NXT newcomers and guests outside of the company. So it would be specifically all WWE talent. I could see, like, if they have Becky Lynch or Charlotte in that, they're kind of telegraphing who's going to win in that. Like, whether it be Charlotte or Becky in the Queen of the Ring tournament. Like, the fact that Charlotte is referred to as the Queen. Yeah. So whoever is women's champion at the time, hopefully they aren't a part of the Queen of the Ring tournament, because if Becky Lynch is a part of the tournament, I can see her winning straight away. And the fact that she would probably call herself the king instead of the queen because she is the man, like, why wouldn't she do that? Like, I can totally see that happening. So I'm all for this. Like, the women's revolution is picking up steam in WWE. Like, they are slowly but steadily eventually getting to the point that the rest of the world has gotten, because the indie scene has risen to this point, like, where all this stuff is just like commonplace, like in terms of the tournaments. Like just here in WA, they announced for the NHPW show Global Conflict that their 2-part event will be all women's weekend. Every match will have stars all across Australia, potentially international. Like, why are WWE so behind in a lot of the regards? And more to that point, with another point that we'll be touching on as well, the talks of intergender wrestling. Now, it's been revealed that one of the reasons, or it's come to light now, one of the reasons that WWE have stayed away from intergender wrestling for so long, it's not the reason you think. It's actually because Vince McMahon and WWE promised the toy maker company Mattel, who is a sponsor of WWE, that WWE's men would never be seen overpowering WWE women in a physical manner. So, according to the newsletter, WWE is very strict on men getting any physical moves in on women. Like, you'll have your occasional women slapping the guys as if they're valets or what have you. And we've kind of tested the boundaries where James Ellsworth has competed against Becky Lynch. Like, so long as it's like, it seems to be, so long as it's not the big, brooding, overpowering man going up against the petite, smaller woman, it feels like that's where their mindset is. And granted, this deal was made at least a decade ago. This was made a long time ago. And it's really come back into the forefront because Walter, with WWE signing Walter, he had a match against Meiko Satomura during a mixed tag match for Fight Club Pro. And he could not do any moves to her. He wasn't allowed to. So to get around that, he kept trying chops and she kept ducking and hitting counters and everything like that. But which the chop from Walter, of course, you're going to try and run away from. But Jesus Christ, this has kind of come to the forefront again because of all this. I mean, look, we are getting to that point. Like I mentioned just a second ago, women's wrestling is on the rise, and it needs to get to that point again where intergender wrestling shouldn't be this taboo thing. I mean, for God's sakes, remember your origins. Freaking China was one of the best intercontinental champions in history. She had Eddie Guerrero was her valet. Eddie was China wore the pants. Eddie was the valet and he loved it. Like, she was his mamacita. Like, that was the Latino heat. That storyline, I love that growing up. Like, watching the Attitude Era, man. Like, that was some of the best bits of story out of the Attitude Era. I'm happy to say that, right? And it feels like if they're going to, like, they need to talk to Mattel at some point and say, look, times have changed. And they've, like, from WWE have actually, through their fault more so, like, they're the ones who put the reins on women's wrestling. Because remember, in the early 2000s, you had women like Trish, Lita, Ivory, Jazz, Victoria, like freaking China, of course, but they were proper performers. And slowly, as that era started to go away, and with Trish being not originally a wrestler, but she was more of a model and became a wrestler because of her involvement with WWE, and WWE kind of went, well, if Trish can do that, why can't everyone else? And they started the Divas Search, which was more about the women being more eye candy, which is not the case, because they should be there for being the best at their craft. And the fact that they are like these beautiful women should not mean that they should be part of the wrestling scene. I could go on and on about this, but please, guys, Queen of the Ring, fully support it. Intergender wrestling, I fully support it. If you guys don't agree with the idea of intergender wrestling being reintroduced, or you think that Mattel's in the wrong like I do, leave us some comments. Like, we really want to get the discussion going about what you guys think about the women's wrestling scene and what it could mean for WWE going forward. But we'll go on to some more news. Vince McMahon has sold about $300,000 of shares of WWE stock, which total about $22 million. So why is he starting to get rid of some of his shares in the company? For his XFL project that was reported a few months ago. It's been revived now. It's going to be returning in 2020. Of course, for those who don't know, XFL is the Extreme Football League that Vince McMahon tried to start in, I'm going to say 2000 or 1999, around about that area. And it was meant to be a alternate to the current state of American football, which did not go too well. Like, the rules were, it's meant to be that there's a lot more violence at the same time. Like, it's kind of a gray area how much rules there were in the sport and how different it was from the American football. Like, there are all Vince McMahon's own teams in there. But yeah, he's putting in about $22 million worth into his little pet project. And he still has about 30 million shares in his company, which is good for about $2 billion, like over $2 billion. So he's not going for broke, but he's putting a fair bit of effort into reviving this brand. Vince McMahon has never failed. Like, the few things that Vince McMahon has failed at in life, he tries to have another crack, and he wants to overcome it. Like, there's only a handful of things, like publicly, of course, that Vince McMahon has ever lost. They lost the World Wildlife Federation, the trademark, which is why WWF had to turn to World Wrestling Entertainment. That tagline, like, Vince McMahon prides himself on just being ruthless, and as a ruthless businessman and entrepreneur with his dealings with professional wrestling, and the fact that he's lost only a handful of times, just going off the top of my head. But yeah, he's hoping to just kind of take another one off that list. So I don't see XFL rising to the heights that it could be. Like, I'm not a fan of American football, but for those of you out there who are familiar with American football, like, we're in Australia, we have Australian rules, we have your rugby and stuff like that. But yeah, best of luck with Vince McMahon. Like, he's obviously giving the reins of WWE to Triple H and to Stephanie while he is focusing on his pet project. So I don't know, maybe it might turn out better than we think, and maybe 2020 is like, with everything that's going on, why not give it another crack? All the more power to him. And before we end the show, guys, I want to talk a couple about, there's been some deaths this past week that I feel like need to be addressed. The first I'm going to mention is Larry Hennig, who is the father of Mr. Perfect and the grandfather of Curtis Axel. He passed away at age 82. At age 82, Larry Hennig has passed away. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with Larry the Axe Hennig, he was a big star in the AWA, and he was a three-time former tag champion with Harley Race. He was a competitor against Bruno Sammartino. He was a big figure in the wrestling scene during the 60s. He wrestled till the 80s, I believe. He was a very big wrestling icon. And, of course, Curtis Axel has touched on the passing of his grandfather. He's saying that 82 years old, 5 kids, 28 grandkids, no one has had a bigger impact on my wrestling career than my Papa Axe. He's been my biggest supporter since day one, another father when I lost mine. We lost our king of the jungle, never thought I'd see the day, but he's with my dad now. So, very sad news. All our condolences go to Curtis and his family during this horrible time. Share with us, guys. Like, let us know what you remember about Larry the Axe. Like, if you're a fan of the old school era, of the golden era of wrestling. And also on December 6th, I believe, or 5th, this past week, the Dynamite Kid on his 60th birthday passed away, which was another one that really hit home for a lot of people, because Dynamite Kid was, of course, part of the British Bulldogs. He was known as one of the innovators of wrestling in the mid to late 80s. Like, he had his notable feuds with Tiger Mask in Japan. Like, you look at those matches, those are ugly matches. He went up against Bret Hart in Canadian Stampede Wrestling, right? Like, Bret Hart considers him to be one of the innovated the athleticism involved in the art of professional wrestling, man. Like, the fact that his health declined to such a degree after his wrestling career proved that he just gave everything in the ring. And like, say what you will about all the other issues, like the personal issues that he had, but you can't deny his legacy on the wrestling world. So rest in peace to Thomas Billington, aka the Dynamite Kid. Our thoughts are with you and the Hart family during this terrible time. We have a couple more stories to wrap things up, guys. We're going to be talking contracts. So you had Brody King, who has reportedly been signed by Ring of Honor. So Brody King, he's been making waves with Ring of Honor. Like, he's been here for World Series Wrestling, and he's had to withdraw from all his future MLW events because of his contract with Ring of Honor. So he's only been performing for a few years, but he's been working with companies such as Defy Wrestling, WWN. He's with Blackcraft, I believe. And another guy who's surprisingly been signed on to Ring of Honor is the man who is not human, PCO. The man, like, he's apparently not human. He's in his fucking 50s, but he's got a contract, and he's had a hell of a year in MLW, right? And I think this is one of the oldest signings that Ring of Honor have ever had. Maybe an oldest signings for an active competitor that that the wrestling world has ever seen. I mean, of course, you have guys like Ric Flair, but in terms of Ring of Honor and like the indie scene, there are very few people who get wrestling contracts still to this day like this, a full-time wrestling contract as well. So PCO, man, I wish you all the best. This is a full-time exclusive contract as well. You don't see shit like this anymore. So unfortunately, because of that, PCO will not be wrestling at the upcoming Black Label Pro events. He even tweeted saying it's one of the biggest contracts and opportunities of his career, which all the more for it, man. Like, I am disheartened that the MLW roster is starting to dwindle, but like, wrestlers are being signed left and right, which has set off alarm bells with a couple of people. We have reports. I mentioned WWE's tryouts in India and in Chile and stuff, and especially with last week we talked about Walter signing, but like, there's been reports that WWE are actively tampering with wrestlers' contracts to other companies in a bid to step up their dominance in the pro wrestling market, which I don't want this to be true, but I can see it totally being accurate, because let's not forget how WWE started. Let's not forget how WWF started, with Vince McMahon going after the territories, and like with the Western world, like not just the Western world, but you got New Japan, you got MLW, you got Impact, you got Ring of Honor, like freaking, you've got the NWA back, you've got potentially All Elite Wrestling coming next year. Like, alarm bells are slowly ringing in the offices of WWE headquarters, and like the fact that WWE are actively signing people left and right. Like, we've got reports of guys like Trevor Lee, got Shane Swerve Strickland, potentially you've got ACH, you've got now like Jonah Rock, like Adelaide's own Jonah Rock, man. Like, if you want to hear our full thoughts on that, latest Aussie Grats episode, we cover this more in depth, but that one was a big shock. Apparently these guys are all going to be starting in January 2019, but it seems like WWE could potentially just be signing all these people just so everyone else can't have them, which it sounds like something the McMahons would do. And if it's true, like this, it's very illegal. It's very illegal, guys. Like, that should be said. Like, the WWE have the most financial clout in this scenario, and they can do that. Whether these guys are going to be actually given a legitimate chance in the company, I don't know. I hope so. Like, freaking, we just had Jonah Rock here in Perth. Like, Jonah Rock was in Adelaide. All these things. Like, these guys should be given as much chance as any other WWE competitor, any other WWE superstar. So, whether this has any ramifications on WWE's only ongoing blitz remains to be seen. Of course, with Ring of Honor, like, they're signing PCO and Brody King. Like, the wrestling world is in anarchy right now. So, we'll be seeing a lot more coming out in the next couple of weeks. And with all this news of WWE with the contracts, and they've actually announced that they are potentially interested in signing even more people, guys. There's been reports that WWE are interested in a IWGP champion, and it's not the one you think. when I saw this, I naturally thought Kenny Omega, but no, it looks like on top of the guys like ACH, Trevor Lee, and Jonah Rock, who are expected to be starting in January, they are looking at Kushida, the current IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion, who is set to face Taiji Ishimura at the Tokyo Dome January 4th. But if this is true, I mean, why wouldn't they want to get Kushida? Like, he is a beloved figure in New Japan. Like, he's one of the best performers out there. There's a reason that he is the junior heavyweight champion over there. And on top of that, not only are they interested in signing Kushida, but two former Mae Young Classic competitors. You've got Karen Q and Rachel Ellering. For those of you wondering about Rachel Ellering, she's the daughter of the legendary manager Paul Ellering, and she graduated from the Lance Storm Academy. And Karen Q is a member of the Ring of Honor's Women of Honor division. She's been a part of that for several years now. So not only are WWE looking towards all around the world, but they seem to be focusing like on the stars that are the up and coming stars from up in America, like in Japan, like, and with all this tampering news, like, innocent until proven guilty. That's all we'll say. So hopefully all this stuff kind of makes sense in the coming weeks, but hopefully, guys, that this just, in general, it's a great time to be a wrestling fan. That's all I can say. We've got even NXT TakeOver Brooklyn. They've moved to Friday night's WrestleMania weekend, which means that the New Japan Ring of Honor Supercard show Final Battle is unopposed at Madison Square Garden. So whether they moved it because the numbers weren't quite there from the last show, I don't know. But we'll see. Like, WWE seem to be really taking precautionary measures. So I hope the tampering contract situation isn't true. Like, we know that they have the ability to do that. And reminder, guys, this is illegal. You cannot tamper with, like, guys' contracts. Right? So if they're trying to sign everyone because they don't want their door to open, the last thing they want is competition, man. Like, I don't know. Share with us your thoughts, guys. We really want to hear your thoughts on the state of WWE going to war with all these different companies and the signing blitz that is going on right now. Like, I, for one, hope Jonah Rock is given as much due. He deserves so much for all he's done for Australian wrestling over here. And, like, we've got MLW going live next week, of course, in Miami for their tapings. So all this stuff is happening, guys. Like, I've got a couple more stories before we finish up today. Hulk Hogan is reportedly signing another deal with WWE. Of course, not as an active competitor. We hope not. The details aren't there, but let's just remind everybody, Hulk Hogan is 65 years old. So it seems like, again, WWE might just be signing all these people because it's stopping everyone else from signing them. So I can totally see Hulk Hogan being signed to WWE, but of course not to wrestle. But what his capacity is, I don't know. I feel like it would be more of an ambassador or spokesperson going forward because of all that's happened. Of course, he's been allowed back into the Hall of Fame, and he had his hosting, quote unquote, of Crown Jewel, where he only appeared for about 5 minutes and then he buggered off backstage and got the hell out of Saudi Arabia. But yeah, all these things, man, like, we're on the verge of something, and I cannot wait to see what we are in store for. Like, it's a great time to be a wrestling fan. Move on to a couple other news here. We got Jack Swagger, aka Jake Hager. He's going to be making his MMA debut. So, of course, for those of you who know more like I do, as Jack Swagger, he was released from WWE back in 2017. And Swagger, I'm going to call him Swagger so I don't get confused, announced in November that year that he was interested in doing some MMA, which, more power to him. Doesn't mean that he's not going to be doing any wrestling again. So looks like he's going to be trying to do both, like Brock Lesnar, like Tom Lawler when he returned back to the ring. Like, the the line between mixed martial arts and WWE is kind of, it's not as blatant now. So these guys can kind of, it's not taboo now, the fact that these guys can do MMA and they can also do WWE. They can also do like wrestling in other companies. Like professional wrestling and mixed martial arts, they should not be, it should never be one and not the other. Which, like, we had like freaking remember your roots. Dan Severn, he was the UFC champion and the a WWE champion at the same time. He was one of the best wrestlers in the world during like the late 90s. Like, he was that guy. And more power to Jack Swagger. I mean, his opponent, I believe it's a man named J.W. Kisser. He's got a 0 wins, 1 losses according to a few websites. So apparently he might have a win to his name, but the details are a bit scarce there. So he's going to be making his MMA debut at Belated 214. The event will be held on the 26th of January 2019. And yeah, of course, like with the way that Lucha Underground ended for season 4, I hope to see him around more in the land of professional wrestling. Like, it should not be one or the other. And like Jack Swagger faced off against freaking Nick Aldis for the NWA Championship in a really hectic match, and Aldis was praising the hell out of Jack Swagger, saying that the only way you can beat a guy like that is to let him beat you, to let him gain that upper hand and then surprise him, because he's a big boy. As much as WWE didn't give him that big push that he kind of deserved, like, he had moments, like he was a world champion at some stage, but man, all these things have kind of built together. So Jack Swagger / Jake Hager / whatever the hell you want to call yourself, man, best of luck in your MMA debut. And I'll touch on one last thing here. Justin Credible has been arrested. The Pro Wrestling Sheets learned that Justin Credible has once again been arrested, this time for misdemeanor assault, violating a protection order, and a breach of peace. So, of course, Justin Credible, former ECW legend. This is not his first instance with the law. He's had charges of criminal mischief, violating protection orders. He lives with his family, but most of the house have protection orders against him in case an incident occurs, which explains so many violations. So we don't want to go into specifics too much here, but we know that he has been working with WWE-sponsored rehab. Apparently, he's allegedly walked away from that. We can't confirm this. And during all this as well, like, he's actually trying to film a documentary about his struggle, like, dealing with his history with the law, dealing with life after WWE, after ECW and all that. Like, once your career is at that point, he's still like 45, like, he's not gone, but I feel like he's semi-retired. And whatever the case is, hopefully these reports aren't as heavy as they sound, because apparently everyone's been trying to reach out to police for additional information, but there's no concrete news on exactly what's going on. So this could just be a personal matter that is being blown out of proportion, of course, with Credible's history with the law. I don't know. So we'll keep you guys updated on all that as it comes along our desks. So I feel that is it, guys. I should have mentioned at the start, this will be our final episode for 2018. We are going to take a little break to enjoy the holidays and to reassess and come back stronger than ever for 2019, guys. We have a lot of plans in store, and we hope a lot of you guys are here for the ride. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you like what we do here, please leave us a comment and please leave us a 5-star review. It really does make a difference, because we love to hear from you guys. Just especially in the coming weeks, please, like, inundate us with messages and news, and like, let us know what we can do going forward for 2019, because we want to give you guys the very best news, not just on my little segment here for All The Rest, but for all our other ones, for View from the WWE Universe, for Aussie Graps, for the Kings of the Sport Universe, like everything, guys. we are here for you, and we want to do whatever we can to provide you guys with the best up-to-date news on the professional wrestling scene. If you want to leave us a 5-star review, it really does make a difference. If you want to follow our super producer, Greg, you can follow him at Greg Unchained on Twitter and the Greg Unchained on Instagram. If you want to follow myself, your man of mystery, I am at Mr Myster1ous with a 1 instead of an I on all the socials, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. Hit me up. And if you want to follow our page specifically, we're at the B Plus Wrestle on Twitter, because wrestling, we just couldn't fit it in there. Just wouldn't fit. And the B Plus Wrestling everywhere else. Like, share, subscribe, hit that 5-star review. And thank you guys so much for listening. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year from all of us here at the B Plus. Myster1ous out.
Hold one. Arm drag.
You're not good at this. Get out. Let me tell you a personal story about Vince McMahon.
You just made the list.
So, no speak English.
Dummy.
Goodbye and good night.
Hold two. Arm bar.
This is the worst town I've ever been in.
It's still real to me, damn it. Dummy. Hold three. The moss covered.